Welcome to the channel. The Premier League season for 2024-25 kicks off this weekend. And so, of course, it's inevitably time for you to get my predictions for how I see the table finishing come May next year. We're going to go through it the conventional way with my championship predictions. I tried to do it alphabetically, and it didn't quite flow as nicely as I hoped it might. So we're going to do very simple: 20th place all the way working up to first. And piece by piece put a table together, which at the minute is sat over here on my right hand side on the left of the screen. And what you'll see is it will slowly populate itself as we go through them. So let's jump straight into it. 20th place. Many people, knowing I'm a Norwich fan, will anticipate me putting Ipswich here, but I want to be as accurate as possible. I want to be able to sit here at the end of the season and go, hey, I got 20 out of 20 places right. And so because of that, I'm actually going to be putting Leicester down there. I don't think they've got the right sort of strike force to be able to get bags of goals. I think other teams have strengthened themselves better. I think it's going to be a real struggle in midfield as well for them. And so, unfortunately, I just don't think Leicester have enough to be able to get off the bottom of the Premier League. Next, in 19th, well, I've actually gone for Nottingham Forest. Again, a team where there's been a bit of strengthening. When they first came up, it exploded with all of these players, even in the second season. And now in the third season, done well to be up there now for a couple of times. Got a good manager now and a good ethos, but looking at how the team has strengthened, I kind of expected a little bit more. And again, this is more, I think other teams have done better at strengthening their team. So unfortunately, yes, I think Nottingham Forest will be returning to the Championship for 25-26. Then we get into 18th. Now, this is another team that finished the back end of last season struggling a little bit and didn't really have the best of seasons. I've gone for Brentford. Yeah, I think the Moneyball tactics of Brentford will unfortunately not quite work this season. Logic behind this? Well, I think it is inevitable that they will be losing Tony. It seems they are actually quite actively looking to sell him, and to the point where that price tag is coming down and down. There's rumours that Arsenal may be getting him as cheap as 30 million. They had signed in the summer Thiago, who was clearly meant to be a Tony replacement. Unfortunately, he has injured his knee quite badly during pre-season and will be out until Christmas. There's a lot of points that you can lose off of not having a key striker. I know that they have recently just signed Cavallio from Liverpool, but I don't think he's someone that has ever really lit the Premier League alight. I don't think he's going to be solving a goal-scoring issue, for example. And so, unfortunately, I think this time Brentford will not only struggle, but they will struggle a bit too much. And again, other teams will just be that bit stronger. So, 17th. Well, look, this is where we do finally find Ipswich. I think I've been fair here. They've got some good signings. Strong midfield is what I think is going to be key here, but also the manager. Being able to keep McKenna away from all of that speculation is probably their signing of the summer by extending his contract. And I think a lot of it will come down to when does the first Premier League manager get fired and when does McKenna become top of that list to leave the club and go and manage someone else, because I think he could make a real difference. Look, they're going to struggle the first 3-4 games. I can tell you that for a fact, Ipswich fans. You've got one of the worst starts that I've seen in a long time. But get through that with more, morale intact, and I think they'll be on for a scrappy but good stay in the Premier League. And I think that's been fair to them. Then 16th place. Well, I've gone for AFC Bournemouth. They had a decent season last year. Finished reasonably well. And the reason why I've put them to struggle this year, a big reason, Dominic Solanke. Now, it depends. Look, if the next 3 weeks they reinvest that money pretty well, I think they could do all right. But to lose 20 goals out of a team that is mid-table to bottom half of the table, that is a big kick in the teeth and is a hard one to replace. And to be honest, I don't think anyone in their squad currently can replace his goals. So it really comes down to 16th if they don't replace him, maybe a bit higher if they do replace him with someone who can score 20 goals. And I really do think it is as simple as that for Bournemouth. 15th, I've gone for Toffee Country, Everton. I think that Sean Dyche will just grind out a lovely another 4-4-2, easy season with a lot of pain, but also periods of really strong stability. I don't think Everton have pieced a really good squad together. I think they've lost key people like Onana, and there isn't really any sign until this financial takeover happens that they will be reinvesting in this squad. If they don't have another run like they did last year, where they won, I think it was 4 or 5 games in a row, I really anticipate them slipping quite quickly down my prediction into the relegation spots again. Fortunately, this time there shouldn't be any FFP breaches, so they shouldn't be seeing any point deduction. 14th, I've gone for a team that I think has made some fantastic signings. Really, really shrewd spending. Not breaking the bank, having recently been promoted. Yep, I've gone for Southampton. I think one of the key signings that they've made is Ben Berrington Diaz. He was brilliant at a terrible Sheffield United in only half a season, racking up nearly 10 goals. And I think you give him a full season in a squad that can provide a lot better for him, he's going to have an absolute whale of a time. So, yeah, I think the Saints fans are going to comfortably survive this year with a few scares along the way, maybe. So, God, 13th already. Getting on towards the midway. I've gone for a team that has really surprised me last year. I thought they would struggle a lot more than they did, especially after losing so many key players and quite a key manager, and hiring someone that really unexpectedly performed out of his skin. I've gone for Wolves. Yeah, and the manager is one of the big factors. Watching some of the stuff in pre-season, they're playing some really scintillating football. And the fact that they are achieving what they are without spending big, really relying on £2-3 million in old-school European players, is quite exceptional, to be honest. And I think they are going to survive reasonably comfortably again for another season. And I think, again, this is another one similar to Ipswich. That could get a lot worse if the manager gets tempted away in the early stages of the season. 12th position. Now we're getting really close to the midway. I've gone for a team that has lost one of their best players, but taken that money and reinvested really, really well. They've now got a new Arsenal link-up, which I think is already proving very well in pre-season. And that's right, I've gone for Fulham. New stadium are on the way. See some development for them. And I think that they will be following that up by quite comfortably staying in the Premier League. When I saw Palhinha move to Bayern Munich, I totally understood the signing, but thought that was going to be a real struggle for Fulham. But yeah, the signings of recently, Emil Smith-Rowe, the potential signings of McTominay. There's also now rumours they're looking to bring Anderson in, who could be a really another strong addition to that centre-back core. I think they've built themselves a nice little squad that will just quietly, comfortably tick away this year. 11th place, so very close now to halfway. I've gone for a team that's been in the Premier League now for a good few years, has survived under some quite bizarre managers, but halfway through last season was able to get rid of one of the most old school managers, one of the most longest standing managers, and bring in a massive improvement and start playing really, really lovely football. And they took their striker from being pretty bang average to the top goal scorer for the second half of the season. That's right, I've gone for Crystal Palace. Fantastic team. Obviously, they've lost Elise. I think that is going to be a hit to them. But I think with how impressive Mateta was, bringing Ismail Sarr in from Marseille, I think is a great replacement for Elise. And they already had a very, very good squad. Wharton, I think, is going to have a fantastic season after breaking through last year. He looked brilliant, for the back end of last year. So, yeah, I think another really, really solid season for Palace. Look, just before we go to our halfway team in 10th, if you're enjoying the video, let me know in the comments, and if you wouldn't mind dropping a like, that's greatly appreciated. And of course, look, we're about to get halfway, so start typing your predictions in the comments as well, because I want to hear from you and whether you agree with mine, but what yours are as well. So 10th place, obviously always a very comfortable season for most teams starting at the Premier League. I've gone for a team that has overperformed, I think, for many, many years, and has done really well this year to actually keep from having to sell some of its biggest assets. They play lovely football. They've got a new manager, which will be interesting to see how that affects it, with their previous manager leaving at the end of his contract. I've gone for Brighton Hove Albion. I think that João Pedro will continue a really quietly comfortable season. I'm hoping that this is the season that Ferguson really breaks onto the scene, plays a lot more games and gets a lot more goals, starts warranting the 120 million that they keep asking people to pay for him. But yeah, I think they've done really well just keeping their core players, adding a couple of little additions there, and it's Brighton. They'll have 8 wonder kids in the youth team ready to break through for any injury, any disciplinary issue, or any situation like that. 9th place. I've gone for a team that outplayed themselves last season. A team that has silently cooked up a fantastic squad this year, but a team that I think will be deeply affected by having a run out in the Champions League. I've gone for Aston Villa. I think that they will, ninth will actually be a really solid season for them. Look, it's inevitable that teams that, go from sort of top of the league, dipping the European stage, it is inevitable for them that they do end up taking a bit of a hit from that, having to balance a squad. And while they have built a fantastic squad with lots of deep rotation in it, I do think that it's fair to say that they will drop out the European stages this year. But I will counter that with I do think Aston Villa have a great chance of getting into the knockout stages of the Champions League. 8th place, gone for another team that's recently had a nice little adventure in the Champions League, has been solid now since its recent takeover, but has now had some slight changes with the ownership. Didn't have to sell some of its prime assets like we all thought that they were going to have to, and I think that's going to make a big difference for them. Balance the books cleverly, let's say. I've gone for Newcastle. I think Newcastle will have another top half, comfortable season. This might be the season that Eddie Howe is moved on. Mutual agreement, let's say. Not through poor performance, but realistically through we need to make the next step. We now need to become consistently a European team. Especially as maybe they start being able to spend a little bit more money as their FFP and their revenue starts to balance the books there. 7th place was now starting to get into the European positions, European qualifiers. I've gone for a team that has had turmoil for the past couple of years, a team that has got more players than some schools have students, a team that has got probably the worst home kit out of the entire 20. I've gone for Chelsea. Cole Palmer dragged this team through the absolute mire last season, and realistically, if it wasn't for Cole Palmer, these lot would be out in the freezing cold themselves. I don't know what to make of Maresca. I know that he did very, very well with Leicester, and I got to see a lot of that being a Norwich fan, but that doesn't mean it's going to suddenly translate, especially to a team that has a revolving door, which is a little bit too much inward revolving at the minute. I think 7th is being overly fair. I really wouldn't be have a 9th or instead, to be honest, next season, because it is going to be a struggle to see them very quickly bed in and start picking up points. So we move on to 6th. Gone for a team that has had some really good recent European success, but they have recently got rid of the manager that was able to achieve that. It's built a fantastic squad. Some signings that they've been able to pip European giants to. And depending on how they players in, it could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower. We'll just have to see how it comes together. I've gone for West Ham, gone for the Mighty Hammers. I really hope that, Lopetegui, a manager, I think is absolutely fantastic. Achieved amazing things when he was at Wolves. I think he was a great signing, moving on from David Moyes in a very fair way. I think the Hammers can get themselves back to European qualification, especially not having to contend with European football this season as well. And that squad they've put together, absolute chef's kiss. 5th place, so we're into the top 5, and obviously we've got 5 of the big 6 left to go. So it's going to be a nice little run in. The team I've gone for has recently changed a legend of a manager for a new guy. Doesn't mean that it's going to spell crisis, but I do think it will be a transitional period. They've done well out in America on pre-season. Haven't had to get one of their biggest superstars out the door. Have been able to secure most of their key signings while also doing a little bit of business here and there. Gone for Liverpool, nice and obvious. I think the Anfield crew will just go through transition this year. I think 3rd was good last season. I think they, were fortunate that some teams were a little bit worse than them as well. But I think it's going to take some time to bed in on an onslaught, and especially with having to contend with European football and etc. etc. I think it's going to be 5th place for Anfield this year. 4th, first Champions League spot. For this season, I've gone for a team that is now starting to get a bit of consistency. They've had a manager around for a little while, who's been able to lift at least a bit of trophies, or a bit of silverware last season. Some would call him the B-Tech Guardiola, but I think that he's starting to prove that he's quite a bit more than that. Made some good signings this year, this club as well. Built a nice squad. Maybe the couple signings that are incoming defensively, I don't fully agree with, but if they click well, then happy days. It's exactly what they need. Gone for Manchester United. I think it will be back into the Champions League for them. Obviously going to be in the lower tiers of European football this year, having won the FA Cup last season, and they were very unlucky to not lift the Community Shield to start their season off positively, but they showed some good signs there. I think it'd be a nice much more comfortable, having a much more secure season as Erik ten Hag continues the rebuild of getting Manchester United to being back where they should belong, according to many football fans in general. Third place, I am going to go for a team that I think has still a long wait for silverware, has not seen this level of European football for a little while, but is building very, very nicely under Big Ange Ball. I've gone for Spurs. I think they've got a nice squad, kept the core of it, added a couple of nice additions here, building a nice youthful defence and midfield with a lot of energy and ruthlessness in it almost with some of that back line. I'm hoping that Big Ange can really settle the team down and make them quietly the best of the rest, because we all knew the final two that were going to be here. Look, before I reveal the second place, which obviously will also reveal the first place team, for me this has come down to one key thing. One missing signing from one team. The team that I'm talking about, I really feel needed a striker. I've talked about it in a few shorts of mine and a couple TikToks, and I'm shocked that it still hasn't happened. But let me stress this: if it does happen, they instantly become my favourites, especially if it happens before deadline day. By a week or two. For me, I'm putting Arsenal second, and as I say, it's really down to they've got easily a team in the midfield, the defence, even more strengthened defence, fantastically so with Calafiori, that I think more can achieve what Man City does in the other games and beat Man City in those games. But I think the biggest thing they've been missing in those key games is that player that consistently gets 20 league goals a season and consistently scores in the big games. And by not replacing that person, or not getting that person, I think they're still missing out. Unless Mikel Arteta knows something I don't and thinks that Kai Havertz and or Gabby Jesus are going to be 20-goal season players, I do think Arsenal will be finishing runners-up again, leaving us with champions once again for the 5th time in a row, Man City, who, if they can also utilise the money for Alvarez if he does leave, and somehow buy another superstar for this team, that'll be incredible. I think Haaland's Salvio and Doku up front is scary for any defence in the world, let alone the Premier League, of course. Very, very impressive what they've been able to put together. And yeah, I think on merit they would be my favourites. But I really think that they have been emboldened by Arsenal not filling in that final piece of the puzzle. Let me know what you think of my predictions down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do drop it a like and share it with those that you think would be interested as well. There'll be plenty more Premier League Championship content. We're going to be doing, plenty of watch-alongs, plenty of matchday vlogs as well. So please do go and have a look through the rest of my content. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thank you again for your time.